You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Hello and welcome to Force 13 Live. Cyclone Mocha made landfall yesterday in the afternoon, local time in Myanmar, and that's where this satellite imagery is that we're looking at here on the top left hand side. Mocha is about to pass away as it continues over western China at this point, and the effects from the storm, at least the storm's cloudiness, is pretty much gone now from the coast where it made landfall yesterday. It peaked as a Category 5 storm and it made landfall as a strong Category 4 with estimated winds of around 150 miles per hour. Hello, my name's Nathan Foy here at Force 13 HQ, covering the aftermath of this storm and to fill you in on the latest news regarding it. It is still traceable, around about 20 mile per hour winds now at this point, and the pressure's gone pretty high there with the storm, what's left of it. Still producing in a fair amount of rainfall over the area. So Mocha has left its mark, obviously, and it will be damage that will linger for quite some time. So far, we believe that we have 5 fatalities at least at the moment. I imagine that's going to go up quite a lot in the next few days. Someone just said I look a little bit tired. Well, I had a terrible night last night, actually. We were supposed to do a tropical weather bulletin, of course, but I actually fell ill overnight after all of the Mocha coverage. I don't know, but my head just blew up basically, and it's been a bit of a struggle in the overnight hours, but thankfully I am back to give you some more information about this storm and what it's done. Now elsewhere, of course, we do have Cyclone Fabien, which is currently active in the southwest Indian Ocean, around 600 kilometers east of Diego Garcia, and that's continuing to move towards the west-southwest, and about 40% chance there for Diego Garcia to receive tropical storm force winds. So another cyclone threat starting to develop there, although apart from Diego Garcia there isn't any other areas that are being impacted. So we're mainly talking about Cyclone Mocha. Of course we'll give Fabian a couple of mentions throughout the stream, but Mocha, of course, making landfall yesterday with approximately a 20-foot storm surge. That's what we estimated, and extremely strong winds in excess of 150 miles per hour, 240 kilometers per hour, which occurred, and a lot of rainfall. Now I saw from reports that in some of the places storm surges reached second story windows, and from what we've seen, the storm surge was coming in pretty quite well in advance of the actual storm arriving, and we know that these areas, we're dealing with the Bay of Bengal, very susceptible coastline to large amounts of storm surge. And we've seen, during our live coverage yesterday, we saw quite a bit of footage of what was going on in real time. We saw that big microwave mast which collapsed, and we'll show you all of that stuff again shortly. I'm joined though today by Chris, who is someone who knows a lot about cyclone preparedness, and I'm sure you can imagine how people would have been in the build up to this storm and where we're at now. So because communications are quite scant in the area still, what do you think that the situation on the ground probably looks like right now.
So, um, kind of reading.
What's that?
Was saying so. Hand.
Oh,
So reading up on everything that kind of like happened, and seeing what had happened. Um, so seeing what happened and just kind of watching what has happened as the storm has gone through. Um, I think that, and I hope that when after the storm made landfall, that emergency services were already prepped and ready to go out. It's sad and it's unfortunate to hear that there's already been confirmed fatalities. I
yep.
honestly very much hope that it stays at 5 and that there's not any more. But with a storm like Mocha, you can never be so sure because rescue teams haven't gone out yet. And really, after 24 to like 48 hours after landfall of a major cyclone or major hurricane, is going to be assessing the damage. And then the government or local governments here, how we do is we have state governments. They make the call on, okay, let's send out the rescue teams. So it ultimately depends on if they had their plans in place, which I hope they did, and how quickly they can kind of get their rescue teams in place. One of the biggest issues of where it's located, as like you said, like the infrastructure is not really good, and the communications infrastructure is really not good there. And when you don't have good communications infrastructure, it's kind of very hard to coordinate a response. So I'm hoping, as the kind of like cyclone preparedness and hurricane preparedness guy, that they had some form of system in place to where they can get the rescue and response teams out as quick as they can. But that's my piece on it.
Yep. Just want to. I mean, there is very little information coming out at the moment. We saw a few little videos just then showing the storm surge, which was piling in, and extremely strong winds. And if you just excuse me whilst I just have a little sip of tea here, because I've got to keep myself sorted out here. But Cyclone Mocha made landfall close to Sittwe City, 14th of May. In the morning UTC, as we know, maximum sustained winds of up to 250 kilometers per hour. In Myanmar, 5 fatalities, over 700 injured people, and over 100,000 evacuated people. Severe damage to Rohingya internally displaced persons camps and houses were reported across the Sittwe area and western Rakhine. Rapid needs assessments from humanitarian actors are ongoing. In Bangladesh,
Yeah.
according to the National Disaster Response Coordination Centre, a total of 414,000 people and 23,000 livestock were evacuated in 7,000 shelters in 14 coastal districts. Significant damage to thousands of refugee shelters and key facilities in camps and host communities in the Cox's Bazar district are reported, but no loss of lives. Needs assessments are ongoing there as well. In India, the authorities report 595 evacuated people and 2,995 affected across Mizoram, which is that province that's close to Bangladesh and the Myanmar border. Copernicus emergency mapping was activated for both Myanmar and Bangladesh on the 11th of May. But apart from this, I'm really not seeing very much in way of information. I'm seeing a lot about the response from the international community, but very little about on the ground impacts.
Yeah, with So with a storm like this, it's gonna be a lot of you're gonna see a lot of like international response in like the beginning hours. It's like I said before, and unfortunate, and I'm gonna kind of deviate a little bit here for a minute.
Sure.
The people that were in India, um, it's an unfortunate thing that they decided not to. A lot of people did not decide to evacuate. 500 people may sound like a lot, but it's not.
Well, I mean, India was actually quite far away from the storm. There is that province that's probably going to get significant rainfall, but not really the
Yeah,
winds.
yeah. But it's just a thing of, especially with a storm like this, even if it's like a border between Bangladesh and Myanmar, you, if you know you're going to be getting hurricane force rain or tropical storm rain, at least want to evacuate somewhere higher, because that area has a lot of like farmland and a lot of stuff like that. So with that, it floods very quickly, and you want to get to a higher point of ground. Um, I'm I have my assumptions that we're going to see a lot of we're going to see the death toll rise
Yeah,
from 5 people, because you said like 700 people were injured.
yeah.
I have I have a very bad feeling that we're going to see that number rise from 5 to to almost a crazy amount of people. But like you said, like a lot of humanitarian aid people are already on the ground there. With stuff like this, usually what'll happen is, with like a lot of like the overseas hurricanes, what will happen is like the UN will actually send in like humanitarian missions, and they'll bring like food, water, medical supplies, and all that. So
And that's already happening, yeah.
yeah, it's ultimately, with a storm like Mocha and with the response, I hate to say it, but it's a matter of time. It's a matter of getting more rescue teams out and trying to find people before they go from rescue efforts to recovery efforts. And yes, that's sad, but it's inevitable in a storm like this. When you have a storm that hits an area that's not very well developed infrastructure wise, at like a peak winds of 155 miles per hour, you're going to have you're not going to have a lot of stuff left. And I'm I'm not trying to sound like the bad guy, but I'm just speaking how it is. I mean, like, they got a direct hit, and
Certainly was.
you and me were speaking a little bit before the stream. It's going to take a while for a lot of these cities and a lot of these like districts to rebuild after this. And with the international support, it's probably not going to take as long, but it's still going to take quite a while for the rebuilding efforts when those start.
We're seeing lots of this footage that we're showing. Some of it we already had access to yesterday, and of course, lots of these locations may have lost comms since the storm made landfall. I'm not. I mean, I've only seen a few things out of Sittwe. There are some pictures of damage there. I'll go and get some of those in a moment after the storm. But a lot of those videos that I've been showing you there have been during the storm. I suppose pictures sort of make more sense after the storm anyway. But let's take a look at some images in the Sittwe area as soon as I can find them again. So let me just read off this tweet with some of these images as well. This is from MSF Myanmar, who I believe are a humanitarian outfit. Their teams are on the ground and seeing significant damage around Sittwe city, including to their jetty, which is crucial to access thousands of vulnerable people living in villages or confined to camps in low-lying areas only accessible by boat. And those kinds of places are very common in the whole Bay of Bengal region, really. So some images here, and you can see quite a lot of damage there, and everything just looks a real mess. So that's some pictures out of the Sittwe area, and there's plenty more besides. I'm just going to search for some again here.
So, Nathan, do we know if we have any like cameras that are still up in Myanmar? Or
there were never any in the first place. You know, we don't. There's very few streaming cameras in those areas.
So those would be like, if there was, we could probably try to see if we can get a view from those.
No, really not. And here's some more just now as well. A view here across part of Sittwe, and apparently they're suggesting that up to 90% of Sittwe has been either damaged or destroyed by the cyclone. Some images from the region again, and you can see there parts of the road curb there scattered across. Certainly takes some strong winds or surge to achieve that, and lots of damaged buildings. We go on to some more here, I think. Yep, just some more pictures here of some of those damages. I'm not sure what that is. Is that next to some kind of airport or marine port? And by the coastline there, I imagine that storm surge would have very easily overtopped that, because that embankment there is probably only about maybe 10 feet at a push. Would easily have been overtopped by storm surge, and damages on the other side of the road there as well. This is Force 13 Live, covering the aftermath of Cyclone Mocha. We'll be happy to take questions during our stream. We're here for the hour to talk about this live. Start your message with Force 13 all in text in the comments section on our YouTube stream. If you're wondering where the storm is now, it's pretty much dead. It is over western China, at approximately 28 degrees north, 103 degrees east. And for those who really want to know, that would put it over which part? I think it would have just passed. It's still, I think, in the southern part of Yunnan province in China right now, the remnants, but it's very scattered around. Lots of cloud cover extending over the entire region. Go.
So I'm looking at the chat, and we have a question. So they asked if Fabian reaches high-end Category 3 or low-end Category 4, what is your prediction after a peak of 120 to 130 mile per hour winds? My prediction is it will weaken until a tropical storm.
I'm not sure what the question is. If it reaches Category 3, what next?
Yeah, so it was asked, off-topic question about Mocha.
Yeah.
If Fabian reaches high-end Cat 3 or low-end Category 4, what is your prediction after a peak of 120 to 130 mile per hour winds?
It would be gradual weakening, most likely. We expect that the peak will occur probably in about 24 hours. It says on our chart just below us as well there, before gradual weakening. Probably quite slow at first, at least for about 3, maybe 4 days, and then probably more quickly. Of course, the track will obviously hold some clues there as well. But let's just show you what the what Meteo France are indicating right now. This is their cone as of 4 p.m. local time, which is 2 hours ago, and you can see their prediction. They're not really sure either. That slow movement of the storm there and fairly large cone indicates that they're not quite sure. GFS has consistently turned it for a full recurve to the southeast, and as you can see, Meteo France have never been keen on that idea. And you can also see Diego Garcia, which is just on the very edge of that cone on that northern side, and it could become a much more powerful cyclone. That darker red, I can't remember what that means now. It's down there. Intense tropical cyclone, 166 213 kilometers per hour, and then turning westwards. So it shouldn't affect, apart from this chance for Diego Garcia, it shouldn't affect any other land areas. It wouldn't make it to Rodrigues because the sea surface temperatures probably aren't good enough. But we'll keep watching that storm as well. It is an active storm, and our automated streaming service will continue to show you all of that throughout its life, and that's what half of these graphics are borrowed from right now, our automated stream, which is still running. Let's see if we have any other questions then whilst we're on here. And no, not really. There was another person that mentioned us. I watch as an invest to a developing cyclone. I mean, to do with Fabian, I don't know, but there we go. But Cyclone Mocha, of course, making landfall is a very powerful 150 mile per hour storm. Category 4, and that Category 5 peak was really something else to see. It's a shame that we don't have some of our analysts on here right now, or other people on our team, because there are a couple of things to talk about regarding the storm during its peak intensity. There was a lot of almost furious chatter overnight on our Discord server about how strong the storm actually was at its peak, whether it was 160, 165 or 175, which is what the JTWC went with, inexplicably in my view. I think 160 is probably fair, but it might have been 165, and I haven't yet been able to do my own research on that yet. 8.7 million people lived in the path of Cyclone Mocha. It struck near Sittwe, one of the least developed parts of Myanmar. In neighbouring Bangladesh, nearly 1 million people living in the world's largest refugee camp also felt the storm's impact. This information from the... who are they? The World Food Programme. And they said that they're stepping up to respond in Bangladesh and Myanmar. They provided 28,000 Bangladeshis in Teknaf cash before the cyclone struck, and 3,400 Rohingya refugees with fortified biscuits. It is resuming regular assistance to Bangladesh. In Myanmar, the World Food Programme is mobilizing emergency food and nutrition assistance to 800,000 people affected by the cyclone, many of them already displaced in conflict. And for those who have just joined us, the latest that we know so far is that there are at least 5 fatalities from Cyclone Mocha, over 700 injured, and 100,000 who were evacuated, and severe damages. But apart from some of these pictures that we've seen, no real indications of impacts in Sittwe and the general area around there. But obviously we're very concerned that those numbers that we've been looking at so far is going to be rising quite a lot. And a few more questions there. How much storm surge did Mocha deliver upon landfall? We don't know. We saw that embankment there, which was about 10 feet tall, and pretty clear that storm surge would have inundated that. So that's quite clear. 20 feet was pretty much the line that we were talking about before landfall that we were concerned about, and given the storm's intensity, that is certainly not far-fetched. In these areas, even weaker storms can deliver 20 feet of storm surge in the Bay of Bengal, given its geography. It's like a I mean, there's nowhere for all of that water to go. Let's see if there's some more information here that I can... Alright, this is from Johanniter Emergency Relief. Food and hygiene kits on their way to Rakhine. 200,000 euros for emergency relief provided Cyclone Mocha. What's that? They need to put a full stop there. 200,000 euros of emergency relief provided. Cyclone Mocha made landfall in Myanmar at noon on Sunday, winds 250 kilometers per hour, one of the most severe cyclones in years. The coastal town of Sittwe was flooded, power and telecommunication poles destroyed, trees uprooted, houses damaged and roofs swept away. Cyclone Mocha destroyed much of the infrastructure in Pak Tau Township, but fortunately no deaths have been reported so far. However, the affected people have not received any aid yet, said Cam T, Johanniter program manager in Myanmar. So they're already sending food and hygiene kits for 3,000 families to the Pak Tau Township, 25 kilometers north of Sittwe, which is probably even closer to where the storm made landfall. And in the coming days, a total of 28,000 people in 32 villages in Rakhine province will be supported with relief goods. Now, what they also said, and of course we pretty much gathered, well, actually, first of all, landslides and uprooted trees have cut off some regions from the outside world. Obviously, we're not surprised by that. And it will take a while until we have a good overview of the extent of the damage, said Magdalena Kilwing, head of emergency response at Johanniter International Assistance. So, obviously, lots of logistical challenges, and we get this a lot in the tropics in general. Lots of places that are isolated villages that we don't hear from for quite a while after the storm. Chris, you still with us?
What's up?
Oh,
yeah, I was muted. What's up?
I just wondered if you wanted to say anything off the back of that, how a lot of these villages in these storm areas could be cut off from the outside world and are difficult to get back online.
Yeah, with the area where this ultimately made landfall, with a lot of these villages cut off and a lot of the response efforts not able to get there, it may take a while for them to be able to get the roads suitable or even get response teams there. Because with landslides and with how much damage this storm produced, the damage that we're seeing, it's going to take a while for the response teams to get to a lot of the villages. It's ultimately a thing of if they have the vehicles, if they have the ability, how are they ultimately going to run the response effort? Because I know that Myanmar's military is a prominent thing. Will they use military vehicles? Will they use civil service vehicles? It really is hard to tell until we get a full extent of the damage and all that. So until we can get a full damage outlook, we don't know what's really going to be the response effort, because the storm just hit. So it's ultimately playing the waiting game and seeing how they respond to the storm and how they get those communities that are cut off kind of back on the grid.
More video emerging here. I think this is Sittwe showing a lot of the damage. Literally a ride through the town there. And the quality isn't the best, but You can clearly see a lot of impacts, lots of power poles down. There's a tree blocking half of the road there, and lots of impacts in that area. All kinds of stuff. Now there is a more comprehensive report actually here from about the humanitarian response. I'm just going to read through this. We already know of some of this, but let's have a...
Yeah. If you want to go ahead and send that my way also, Nathan, when you get a chance, I'd like to read it as well.
Alright. I don't know when I'll get a chance, but we'll see. So, tens of thousands of families have been affected, and homes and key facilities have been destroyed, especially in the Rohingya camps in Teknaf and neighbouring Bangladeshi communities. What else do we have there? Authorities suspended the operation of all sea transportation on the Basanchar-Chittagong route from 10th of May due to rough sea conditions. I mean, that's pretty obvious. Evacuation of around 30,000 refugees to 53 cyclone shelters, which have been prepared by all actors in anticipation for the cyclone. No loss of life or property was reported in that area, but 5 so far that we know of around Myanmar. The Bangladesh government demonstrated preparedness in the face of Cyclone Mocha by evacuating over 750,000 people to safety in Cox's Bazar and other areas. 565 cyclone centres were prepared, and 11 in Cox's Bazar, and 11 were prepared in the Pataukali district. At Bazilla level, cyclone shelters were stocked with 14 tons of dry food and 200 tons of rice. The Bangladesh Meteorological Department advised a Great Danger Signal number 10 for maritime ports and islands in Cox's Bazar, and Great Danger Signal number 8 for 11 other coastal districts. The government kept 150 fire stations on standby in the coastal areas to respond to any situation. 16,500 volunteers worked to help people in the Chattogram district, with 100 Cyclone Preparedness Program volunteers engaged for each refugee camp in Ukia and Teknaf Upazila. Let me find something else though. Immediate clearance of debris on the road started following the storm, and just looking at anything else of interest. Probably not really on this information here, but as we know, news is quite difficult to get a hold of right now.
If I can, real quick, Nathan, I just kind of wanted to talk about the whole Bangladesh response to this. Bangladesh's response to this was actually very good. I am glad that they were able to get that many people evacuated, and that they had a plan in place, and that they acted on that plan. That's always good to see, especially with strong storms like this, is a plan that's put into place and a plan that's acted on. Now it's a thing of when the extent of the damage is out, we need to see what Myanmar is going to be doing, and what a lot of those towns over there are going to be doing, and what they did as they did for their efforts.
And here's another video from when the storm was striking. Look at that. That was probably in Sittwe. A lot of those corrugated huts, really, that were being torn apart there by the storm when it arrived yesterday. Let's get some comments and questions once again. SRB12 has another question about Fabian. If it somehow turned north then southwest before finally curving, could it intensify even more after its first peak? Oddly enough, the GFS is calling for a little bit of a loop to happen with it, maybe. I'm not convinced by that, but we'll see. Could Mocha produce tornadoes? Well, it's done now. It's not going to do anything at this point. And does Cyclone Fabien have an eye in infrared satellite imagery? It's hard to tell. It will have an eye, but it's not that clear on the satellite imagery, albeit there isn't particularly good satellite imagery coverage in the area. Did the IMD go with super cyclonic storm for Mocha? They didn't. They never called it a super cyclonic storm, which is interesting. So this is a lot of different videos from the storm when it arrived in the Sittwe area predominantly. But those who are wanting to know right now about Mocha, it is pretty much gone. It's got very light winds. What's left of it is over western China right now. And you can see it on there, the top right hand side. Lots of convection, but not very organized convection, so it's just general rainfall over that area right now, although some accumulations could still reach up to 150 millimeters in the area around China, western China. Now there were one or two questions about that line as well on that radar. I don't know if there is actually something going on there right now. And that other imagery there that you just saw, that's not up to date, so that's pretty useless. But there we go. So for those of you who just joined us, this is just a sum up really of the aftermath of Cyclone Mocha. The information that we've got at the moment, although there's very little information I'm afraid, is that there are 5 fatalities and 700 injured by the storm. We're waiting for news, any further news about that, but at the moment that's all we've really got, and hundreds of thousands evacuated from this storm. So I'm just going to keep sifting through just to check that we've got everything up to date here, just to make sure. But please send in your questions to us whilst we're live. Me and Chris at the moment, taking you through this hour. And regrettably, I don't really have any satellite imagery from when Mocha was peaking. Of course, we covered it live in all of our coverage, and we had it on our automated feed as well. But obviously, it was a beast. I suppose I can show you some images of the storm that I captured along its way. A very powerful storm it was, as we know. I think I captured quite a lot of screenshots on it.
So Nathan.
Yeah.
So I actually have my own question. So why did they make the decision to not classify it as a super cyclone?
IMD just didn't really have the. They just didn't think it was strong enough to classify it as a super cyclone, super cyclonic storm. I don't really know why. It probably should have been. JTWC, on the other hand, went the complete polar opposite, and they put it too high, in my opinion.
So we have another question. How high were the cloud tops in Cyclone Mocha before landfall?
I'll show you in a minute, but I just want to go through my gallery here of images. That's when the storm was intensifying, and that's directly over the Bay of Bengal there. And there it was, starting to pop out its eye. That was the storm surge graphic, which I also think they went way too low on. That was the IMD there. They're only forecasting a storm surge of 2.5 meters, which is only about 8 feet, when it was more likely than double that. And there's an image near its peak intensity. There's another one, the one that I used for the thumbnail on today's stream. What a beast it was there near its peak. And that, I think, was stuff for the Tropical Weather Bulletin. And there it is again. That was the morning of landfall, and this was after landfall, or during, maybe. Yeah, this was a bit after landfall. And that's all I've got here. But I'll show you the RAM imagery as well of the whole storm, the whole storm's progress as it occurred, because it'll be interesting to look at that as well. And what a blockbuster of a first storm of the season, by the way, out there in the Indian Ocean. But sometimes it happens that way, that the first storm starts off really strong. So here's imagery from RAM showing the storm from when it first formed there, and it looked potent right from the off. You look at that there, it really strengthened quite rapidly. And then it was shrimping, and then it was really blowing up. Then the eye was appearing there, and then a whole red ring. Didn't hold on the first time, it did the second time. And then a yellow ring, almost getting round. Then it got a little bit of shear there for a little bit, and then it started emerging again. And there it is, getting much, much stronger. This is when we were contemplating Category 5. And around here is when it became a Category 5. And then the cloud tops really shrunk away as the storm made landfall. And then the storm gave up completely not long after. And then it really weakened very quickly. So there it was. Let's get some more comments here. So to answer that question about how high the cloud tops were, let's watch again. Just fast forward through here. But the cloud tops were in the minus 80s, but the eye had disappeared by that point. But just to show you there, round about a landfall right there. Cloud tops around minus 80 degrees. But they didn't last very long. It then died away very quickly. Son Kim says the South Atlantic naming lists have added 2 whole new lists. And what are our thoughts? I have no idea. I don't know what any of the names are, but I guess they'll do what they want to do over there in the South Atlantic, even though most of the storms they name are questionable. But there we go. So we were just looking through that satellite imagery of Cyclone Mocha. But whilst we're here, let's take a look at Fabian now as well. Here's the latest imagery of Fabian. I keep pressing the wrong button there. And that's the storm. Doesn't look much really on this infrared, but every so often you see hints of that eye. And so this is, by indications, quite a powerful Category 1 with winds of 90 miles per hour and an estimated central pressure of 969 millibars. Our automated stream will be covering this in more detail with live imagery. So Chris, tell us about what happens in these areas impacted by cyclones and how long it can take to get communications back, electricity, clean water. These are all basic necessities that get taken away during these ferocious storms.
Oh yeah, absolutely. With storms like these, I can. It could take a while because really it all depends on how quickly the crews can get out, what the road conditions are like, and it's ultimately how quickly they can get out and how quickly they can work. Clean water that may not be back up for a while. And the reason that I say that is because while we are still waiting for the full damage assessment to come in, it may be a thing of where it may be a while until they get that back. But communications and electricity, they probably have it prioritized out on which one is first. Like I said, we won't know until it's like the full extent is out, and we really don't know what their list of priorities is for what to get back online first. But it could be a little bit for a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we're looking at more videos here of the storm when it was impacting, with objects floating away there. I think there's actually someone on that. And such intense rainfall there, even though the video quality isn't so good. So pretty intense conditions when the storm did hit. And another view here showing what the storm surge was looking like in one of these locations, really getting quite high. Can't quite tell how high that is there. Certainly a few feet. So a lot of these videos are during the storm. We haven't really seen any. We saw that little video of that person going along the streets, but we haven't seen much video of the aftermath. This is all during, before the comms went out there. But I imagine it will get restored pretty soon, since we already saw one video after the storm of looking at the aftermath and the conditions. Here's another one of when the storm was occurring, and obviously quite clear that it was a powerful storm, and it caused significant damage. I don't know how strong the winds would have been at Sittwe, but at Landfall it was probably around 150 miles per hour when it hit 20 kilometers to the north. 240 kilometer per hour winds sustained, and higher gusts when it happened. And likely a storm surge of 20 feet. Hurricane Altony Bronze says, does the GFS say for the Northern Indian Ocean, or does it say anything for the Northern Indian Ocean in the next 10 days? I doubt it. I haven't looked, but I don't think so. Is that what you wanted to say? Oh, go
on. I pinged you in the chat. I gotta head out. Can you manage if I leave?
Oh yeah, no bother.
Alrighty.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So here's some new video as well that's just emerged recently of another perspective of the cyclone when it arrived. You've got the surge and you've got really strong winds. So a difficult situation it clearly was. This is Force 13 Live, covering the aftermath of Cyclone Mocha, an update basically with what happened from the storm. This was another video as well when the storm was nearing its full flow. Again, those who have just joined us, we know of at least 5 fatalities that have occurred from the storm and 700 injured. Interestingly, that number hasn't changed very much, and we haven't heard of any more fatalities yet. I'm sure there will be, unfortunately, given the area involved, but I am a little surprised at the slowness of that info. Even if it is in this area. I'm just going to keep showing some videos here. Another one from during the storm, it would appear there. A fallen tree. Strong winds. And always when this happens, there's the threat of flying projectiles. So once again, that was during the storm. Those who are still concerned about Mocha right now, the storm has passed. It is gone. It is pretty much dead. The remnants of it right now are lurking across western China with no strong winds and just probably heavy rainfall in a few locations and locally heavy rain, which could possibly cause flash flooding. But in Myanmar, the threat from the storm is absolutely gone. And as a matter of fact, I think most places today in Myanmar have been sunny. Or at least mostly sunny. But that's images that we were looking at there throughout the storm, and here's another one as well. And that shows a lot of damage there too. Structural damage, power poles, trees. So a big cleanup operation will be underway there day and night. And the full toll of damage may not be known for some time. I was looking at a map yesterday, and I was quite surprised by the amount of tiny villages there are that are well inland with no road links or anything that I imagine will be quite difficult to reach. And communities that may need emergency aid. And as we saw earlier from those pictures, places that are only accessible by boat, and as such having difficulty being reached there as well. I remember showing this one. This was quite early on in the storm, but still interesting to watch this, because literally a tree that fell in real time. So that was just when the storm was revving up, and that structure there in the middle, I don't know if it's like a statue or commemorative structure. We saw that on that other video earlier on showing the aftermath of the storm, and one of those trees behind it on the other side of that junction had fallen across the road as well. So certainly a lot to be said about Cyclone Mocha, which peaked of course as a category 5. Whether its intensity was 160 miles per hour or whether it was stronger than that, might have been towards 175 miles per hour. That's what the GTWC said. I think that's nonsense personally. But perhaps 165 might have been an intensity for Cyclone Mocha. Either way, still an extremely powerful storm, very destructive. It's going to have lasting consequences, very damaging. Hurricane Alton Ibran says, will it take years to recover from a storm like Mocha? I mean, to an extent, even in the United States, you see buildings that get abandoned, tree damage that doesn't get cleared up, years and years after a hurricane strikes. So in that regard, you'll see the scars for many years, but I don't know how long it will take for people to get back on their feet. For most, I imagine it will probably be a few weeks, but some may be waiting for months, and these refugees that have been affected by the storm as well, up to 1 million of them, I mean, their position, I suppose, is indefinite, so I don't really know what to say about that, but certainly this storm will have a lasting impact. 413's live coverage. We covered the storm for over 6 hours yesterday as it made landfall, with all of the information that was hopefully useful to everyone. So I hope we did a good service whilst the storm impacted that region. I think we did a decent job on our coverage. I would do it again, no problem at all, even though the it did take a little bit of a toll on me last night for some reason. All of the coverage and not very much sleep, to be honest, because we started coverage at 2 a.m. my time and finished at 8:30 after. So an all-nighter basically from my perspective of things, but you know, needs must when it comes to a challenging situation like this, and we were never going to shirk the possibility to do coverage on an extremely dangerous storm that people needed our coverage on, I think. But I think we did a good job in the end. But for the time being, I guess that's everything for now. There's no real new information. Just to give you an idea, though, there were 2.3 million people in the impact area. There were 1.3 million Bangladesh nationals in Cox's Bazar, Bandarban and Rangamati, and 960,000 Rohingya refugees in Cox's Bazar and Bhasan Char. And they were all affected by the storm as well. Let me just check one more time to see if there's any new information that's coming out here right now, but I don't think there is. The information that we've got, the latest here, is that there were 5 fatalities, 700 injured people, over 700 as a matter of fact, and over 100,000 people who were evacuated from the storm, probably more than that as well. Next up, we'll be going on to our live automated stream once again, which will have more information on all of this, live images, satellite imagery, and also we'll be showing Fabian quite a lot there as well. We'll be animating the floater imagery on there shortly, once I get back over there, and we're probably going to convert to a Fabian stream now rather than a Mocha stream on that automated stream there. That happened. So from here at 413 HQ, that's it for the time being. We hope people stay safe over there. If any of you are watching us, I doubt there'll be many of you, but I know that some of you were during the storm. Live on Tropics, one of our members, says that Mocha was truly a quite historic storm, and I'm just hoping that once we see the full scale of it, we hope it won't turn out as bad as some other major storms that hit the region were. And Hurricane Altony Bron says, one more question, will we do more aftermath streams like this? Probably. It's important to do things like this. And people always complain, especially if they're in the areas that are impacted, that they get forgotten about. The news media, they move on to the next disaster. I personally hate that kind of thing. We don't do this for... you know, we don't really do it for the clicks, we do it for the information and I suppose the humanity of it all, I guess. We are knowledgeable in this field, so this is why we put out our broadcasts and try to be of use to and of service to these communities. In any case, that's all for now. We'll be back with a tropical weather bulletin later on at 0 UTC, as usual. And for now, that's it from 413 HQ. We'll have our automated stream with more updates throughout the day. Good night.